it should put me on a pedestal and worship me! That is the only world that is worthy of me!
Wrong. Having psychic powers doesn't make you popular.
See? There you have it. You'll never be popular, so give it up.
Mob Psycho is one of my favorite animes of all time. There are many reasons why, ranging from its poetic yet humorous character writing, the strong themes of self-acceptance, and of course, the incredible animation sequences. But what really hooked me about Mob Psycho was how it shattered my expectations regarding the way it would use its carefully crafted framework. Let me explain. In case you haven't seen it, Mob Psycho is about a boy named Shigeo Kageyama, or Mob, and he lives in a world where spiritual, supernatural, and psychic powers are very real. Mob is a gifted power user himself. He becomes an apprentice to another psychic in order to learn how to better control his abilities. Together, they go around fighting evil ghosts and spirits. Meanwhile, a shady villainous organization is rising to power, with a dangerous mastermind aiming to take over the world. On paper, Mob Psycho is set up to be your average shonen storyline, and it very well could have been. Except, Mob is already the strongest power user in the world. He spends more time learning how to navigate his school and social life than he does training his powers. And his mentor is actually a middle-aged con artist who fooled him into believing he's an expert esper. Although there are awesome powers, intense action, and formidable rivalries, Mob Psycho is really a comedic coming-of-age story disguised as a battle shonen. That unique combination is precisely what makes the show so great. Mob Psycho was created by a mangaka who goes by the pseudonym One. One is also the creator of the popular series One Punch Man, which is well known for using parody and meta humor to tell its story. In an interview discussing the manga, he once said, "My favorite way to make plots is to rub serious elements and gag elements together and create comedic atmosphere by the friction." There's no doubt that the same philosophy was applied to the creative process of Mob Psycho, just in a much less obvious way. Menacing, evil monsters square up against a nonchalant middle schooler who's more afraid of being awkward around girls than he is of dying in battle. Intensely serious villains get humiliated by a con man with no real fighting experience of his own. These contradictions of tone are a huge reason why Mob Psycho stands out from the crowd. Basically, it doesn't take itself too seriously, which makes for a refreshingly entertaining experience. It's also worth mentioning that when creating the series, One's main intention was to tell a relatable story about life. In another interview, he recalled that the two subjects he had in mind while creating Mob Psycho were simply psychic powers and adolescence. He also frequently shows his characters engaged in workout routines, both in Mob Psycho and One Punch Man. When asked about this, he said that the reason was to provide readers something they can relate to, no matter how out there the story's universe might become. I feel like that pervasive relatability, despite the absurdity of the premise, is what ultimately defines Mob Psycho. It's something that is baked into the very core of the narrative. The psychic action is a huge part of the show, and it is super enjoyable. That said, with it being such a foundational element of the plot, Mob gets way more screen time devoted to things like him exploring what club he wants to join at school, or heart-to-heart conversations with his mentor, Reagan. When he's not exercising spirits, Mob is just a middle schooler trying to figure out who he is. That story is very often what takes precedence over his supernatural encounters. And when he does encounter evil spirits or even other espers, it's never a question of whether or not Mob will be skilled enough to win. It almost always comes down to an inner battle with himself and his emotions. Furthermore, the seriousness of these encounters is usually undercut with comedy. For example, Mob's first real fight against another esper ends with his opponent naked and balding. All of this is to say that these ordinary and absurd aspects are where the true identity of this anime can be found. I always find myself on the edge of my seat when a fight breaks out, but the most memorable scenes are those in which the quirky yet heartwarming traits of Mob Psycho are on full display. This is a show that wants to flaunt its creative power system, but more than that, it wants to make you laugh, and it wants to provide its audience with relatable drama. In my opinion, it does a fantastic job in that regard.
No matter what kind of special powers you may have, you're still only human, no more and no less. It's the same for everybody. But somehow you've all forgotten that. You're so addicted to your special powers you've developed tunnel vision. First, get rid of those ridiculous shoulder pads and grow up.
What's really cool is that the superficial framing of Mob Psycho's power system actually elevates its underlying themes. As previously stated, this is fundamentally a coming-of-age story with gag elements. Normally, coming-of-age stories focus on younger characters as they transition into a new stage of life, learning how to become better versions of themselves along the way. However, Mob Psycho extends the concept of growing up to characters of all ages. There are many adults in the show faced with very similar internal struggles as the teenagers. Why is this important? Because the one thing that ties all of the character arcs together is power. Of course, there's the obvious focus on psychic power, but it goes much deeper than that. So many people in Mob Psycho are in positions of power to some degree. Whether it's a cult leader, a class president, the most popular kid in school, or a towering bodybuilder. Even Reagan is someone who is in a position of power, at least when it comes to Mob. We frequently see characters abuse these positions of power. Many of them become completely corrupted by it. Over time, we learn that most of these people are merely compensating for feelings of insecurity and loneliness. Perhaps the most insecure of them all happens to be the main character, yet he couldn't care less about his incredible power. This is because Mob intuitively understands that power doesn't really matter. It's a significant part of him, but it's not who he is. It doesn't make him better than anyone else, nor does it give him the right to hurt others. What really matters is who you are without the power. Mob isn't a perfect human being. He struggles immensely with accepting himself and his own emotions. He fears what he could do if he were to lose control. He faces the same feelings that his antagonists do, but the difference is that Mob is committed to becoming a better person. It's why the members of the Body Improvement Club respect and admire him so much. But the series also acknowledges that it's okay to lose control as long as you learn from it. Even the main villains are given second chances. I love that the same themes are applied to the adults as well, because the truth is, growing up doesn't stop when you become an adult. We're all constantly growing and learning no matter our age, and it's never too late to start again. So I guess my point at the end of the day is that so many characters in Mob Psycho chase after fantasies of power and admiration, but all of them ultimately learn that these things don't matter. Just like how crazy fights and psychic abilities are a big part of the show itself, but they're not what it's really about.
That's your older brother, isn't it? Is he okay? Seems like he's about to pass out.
Yeah, because despite how he might look, my brother is strong, stronger than anybody else.
He looks passed out to me.
Ah!
I want to wrap this all up with another quote from Mob Psycho's creator. Responding to a comment about the story's slow and gradual depiction of Mob's growth, he said that his thought process was to tell a big story of one little step. He then added, "I don't believe our lives change completely for the better at a short notice. It's all the small progress we make that's important." There's a lot of truth to that statement, and the same idea is communicated in Mob Psycho's narrative. I think it's what most separates the story from other popular shonen series. So many characters' powers are used to illustrate progress, and it's not unusual to see a major power-up achieved in less than 15 episodes or so. But in Mob Psycho, the focus is instead placed on the lessons learned in everyday life. None of the characters are perfect. All of them eventually come to understand that having special powers doesn't make you superior, nor does it give you an excuse to not better yourself. What matters is how you live your life and treat those around you. So, as much as Mob Psycho may seem like a standard battle shonen, it's really telling a story about ordinary people. It's absolutely a love letter to the genre. It just isn't overly concerned with being a part of it. If you're still here, thank you for watching. Consider dropping a like or even subscribing. I primarily cover topics related to One Piece, but I'm slowly branching out into other animes as well. That's all for now though. Hopefully I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.